Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjan Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, text number 4, chapter number 4, text number 17. Mantreshu Mam Va Upahuya Yat Tvam Akuntitakhanda Sadatma Bodha Priche Prabho Mugdha Iva Pramattas Tan No Mano Mohayativa Deva Mantreshu Mam Va Upahuya Yatvam Akuntita Khanda Sadatma Bodha Priche Prabho Mugdhaiva Pramattas Tanno Mano Mohayativa Deva Mantreshu Mam Va Upahuya Yatvam Akuntita Khanda Sadatma Bodha Prichev Prabho Mugdha Iva Pramattas Tanno Mano Mohayativa Deva Mantreshu Mam Va Upahuya Yatvam Akuntita Khanda Sadatma Bodha Prichev Prabho Mugdha Iva Pramattas Tanno Mano Mohayativa Deva. Please chant. Anybody else on the men's side? Upahuya Yatvam Akuntita Khanda Sadatma Bodha Prichev Prabhu Mugdhaiva Pramattas Tanno Mano Mohayativa Deva. Matri. Mantreshu, in consultations. Mam, unto me. Vai, as either. Upahuya, by calling. Yet, as much as. Tvam, your lordship. Akuntita, without hesitation. Akhanda, without being separated. Sada, eternally. Atma, self. Bodhaha, intelligent. Prichehe, asked. Prabhu, O my Lord. Mugdaha, bewildered. Eva, as if it were so. Apramattaha, although never bewildered. Tat, that. Naha, our. Manaha, mind. Mohayati, bewilders. Eva, as it is so. Deva, O my Lord. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation, O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to your perfect knowledge. Thus, you were sufficiently able to consult with yourself, yet you called upon me for consultation as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered. And this act of yours bewilders me. Purport. Uddhava was never actually bewildered, but he says that all these contradictions appear to be bewildering. The whole discussion between Krishna and Uddhava was meant for the benefit of Maitreya, who was sitting nearby. The Lord used to call Uddhava for consultation when the city was attacked by Jarasandha and others, and when he executed great sacrifices as part of his routine royal work as the Lord of Dwarka. The Lord has no past, present, and future because he is unhampered by the influence of eternal time, and thus nothing is hidden from him. He is eternally self-intelligent. Therefore, his calling for Uddhava to give him enlightenment is certainly astonishing. All these actions of the Lord appear to be contradictory, although there is no contradiction in the routine activities of the Lord. Therefore, it is better to see them as they are and not attempt to explain them. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It will leave it at that. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Niti Namini. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prajayini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ki Jai. Okay, there is actually a lot in this small purport. Practically every sentence, actually, you could pretty much give a whole class on actually every single sentence in this purport. It's one of those packed kind of purports. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada's purports, although they're very short, there's a lot there. Actually, in every single word in Srila Prabhupada's purports, there's a lot. You could analyze even Srila Prabhupada's word choice here, but that's perhaps another class. The first thing that stuck out to me was the first sentence of this verse. Uddhava is saying, "O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time." I guess the first half of the first sentence. Which is interesting language. Usually when we talk about time, when Shastra talks about time, we don't talk about it in terms of dividing. Generally, we talk about how time deteriorates things, time wears things away. But we don't usually talk about how Krishna's undivided by time, or how somebody's undivided by time, or how even some people are divided by time. It's not our general, you could say, perspective, but it's one that is has major philosophical implications. This purport has major philosophical implications, and also, if you see it in relation to some other statements that Srila Prabhupada makes about Krishna and time, again, one of those things you could spend several classes talking about. There's one verse in the 10th canto, in the 46th chapter. I'm not sure exactly what the verse number is, but you don't need to pull it up. It's not worth pulling it. Oh, I thought Hare Krishna was pulling it up. Not exactly worth pulling up, but there's one word in there. The verse goes, Kalaya kalanabhaya kalavaya vasakshine vishvaya tadupadrashte tatkartre vishvahetave. Mainly the first half is relevant here because we're talking about time. It's a prayer, actually. Kalaya, it's addressing Krishna, firstly as time itself. So Krishna is time in the sense that time is one of his energies. And time in the material world is the most powerful of Krishna's energies. Time basically supersedes all other energies. The influence of any other aspect of Krishna's material energy is basically bound under time. It's basically a matter of time until there's a change in the influence of those energies, and you have a completely different situation. So Krishna's addressed as time. Kalaya kalanabhaya, also because time comes from him. Kalanabhaya, time basically is birthed from him. This specific pada in the verse is something that I wanted to address here because it's specifically relevant here. Kalavaya vasakshine. I think everybody here knows what the word sakshi means. Sakshi means witness. Like we have Sakshi Gopal, who witnessed, or who bore witness to that whole situation with those two brahmanas. So kalavaya vasakshine. So kala is time, and avayava is the divisions of time. So kalavaya vasakshine. Krishna sees all of the divisions of time. Krishna sees past, present, and future all at the same time. I guess there's a leak. Is that what that is? Anyway. Kalavaya vasakshine. So Krishna sees past, present, and future all at the same time. Which brings up another question, or which gives us an indication of the Bhagavatam's view of time. Generally speaking, amongst philosophers, there's two positions on time. One is regarding the objectivity of tense, in the sense that tense is something that is actually real. Past, present, and future are real divisions. The past did exist and does not exist now, and the future will exist and does not exist now. Only the present moment actually exists, and everything else is either did exist or will exist. So that is one view. However, Krishna is described as, again, kalavaya vasakshine. He can see all of the divisions of time at the same time. So this tells us actually that time is actually, or the experience of tense, the experience of past, present, and future is actually subjective. It's actually not a real division in the sense that it's not that only the present moment exists. Actually, time exists as, and I'm sorry for all this technical, but anyway, it's in the verse and it's worth discussing because these are actually basic questions that intelligent people ask about Krishna consciousness. So it has to be dealt with. But so time exists, just like I'll give an example that we can understand, because we're under time, actually we can't really, it's not really something that's conceivable. Krishna's ability to perceive time as he's described as doing so. I assume I'm about to catch you off guard. I assume that everybody here has played Super Mario Brothers. Actually, maybe not everybody, but most, I think, of the Western devotees here have played Super Mario Brothers. In this video game, you have a character, and he can go left or right, and he can go up or down. That's two dimensions. You have length, and you have height. Our ability as third-dimensional beings, we have the ability, so Mario, he can either look left or he can look right. That's all he can do. He can't, look at his world straight on as we can see it. So we're looking at the second dimension head on in a way that somebody who's in the second dimension couldn't. Why? Because we can look at it from the perspective of width. In the same way, Krishna being, well, I guess then we can go from a fourth dimensional perspective. Then from we are in the third dimension, we can see all of the second dimension. A fourth dimensional being means one who is basically above the third dimension, above length, width, and height, can see all of the third dimension, basically can travel through time, just as we walk across this room, a being who's above the third dimension, who's in the fourth dimension, can traverse through time in that way and can see the third dimension basically from that perspective, from the perspective of time, above the third dimension. In a similar way, Krishna, who's above time even, can see all of time, past, present, and future, at the same time. Past, present, and future exist basically as like a block of time, and Krishna can see that entire block because he's above it. So the past exists, the present exists, and also the future exists. That's not to say that we don't have free will, but it's something like saying, if you're looking at it from like the perspective of the past, it's something like saying every decision that we've made or that we will make has already been made. It's not that you're not making the decision, but it's already done. And you can also give the analogy like if you're watching a movie. If you're watching a movie, from your perspective, you can move through the different, you can move the little slider and you can scrub through and you can see all the different parts of the movie. The characters in the movie have the perception that they're, of course, time is a one-dimensional linear flow, and they have the experience that they're making conscious, free decisions. But basically those decisions already exist. So free will and this view can also coexist. So that's basically what is being said here, that Krishna is not divided by the influence of time. He's above it. For Krishna, there's no past. For Krishna, there's no present. There's no future. Krishna just exists. You could say he's eternally in the present. That wording is also there in our Shastra, and Srila Prabhupada says things like that. But he is not influenced by the divisions of material time. For him, there's no past, present, or future. That being said, Srila Prabhupada also describes that in the spiritual world there is time, which is perhaps not how we usually word it. We usually word it that Krishna is above time. That is to say that Krishna is above material time. There are basically two forms of time. Srila Prabhupada also, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually described this also in Jivadharma in one place, that in the spiritual world, it's not that there's no time, because we see that there is some chronology in the spiritual world. First, Krishna wakes up, then Krishna gets dressed, then Krishna goes out, to tend the cows. So there is a sequence of events which indicates that there's some kind of time. But the nature of that time is completely different from the time that we experience here, in the sense that that time doesn't influence events in the spiritual world like it influences events here. One thing is that time is fully under Krishna's control. Krishna is described as being able to expand and contract Vrindavan to facilitate his pastimes. Krishna being the controller of time, similarly also, he can control time in the spiritual world to facilitate his pastimes. Some devotees quote Srila Prabhupada as saying that in the spiritual world it can be night and day at the same time. How exactly that is, of course, we can't really understand. We can't really conceive of that. But philosophically, there's no contradiction necessarily there, because again, this is one of Krishna's energies in which he's, or of which he is fully in control. So time also in the spiritual world is experientially different than it is in the material world. In the material world, we experience that my past is gone, and we're anticipating the future, and we're living in the present. But in the spiritual world, in some places, it's described that basically there is only the eternal present moment. This is basically pretty much a close paraphrase of the wording that Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses in Jaiva Dharma. That in the spiritual world, there's only the eternal present moment. That past, present, and future are experienced as one harmonious unit. Again, something which is completely outside of our experience, but at least we can know that. So, in summary of this first half of this first sentence, Krishna, he's being above time. He can see all of time, basically, in front of him. Just as we see, if you think of time as like a line on a piece of paper, and we are at a certain point on that line. Krishna has the perspective, he can see the entire piece of paper. So he can see the line and he can see the individual points which one might discern on that line. So at least if somebody asks us, we can give that analogy. That's a simple one. This addresses, or you could say this is a small aspect of the bigger sort of topic that this verse and purport are dealing with, which is mentioned in the second half of the first sentence, that there's no limitation to Krishna's perfect knowledge. Basically, the rest of this purport, this verse and purport is dealing with Krishna's omniscience and you could say, limited omniscience of Krishna's pure devotees, of Premi Bhaktas. So there's a verse that Srila Prabhupada often quotes. He quotes it in one purport in Bhagavad Gita, in the 5th chapter. Anora niyan mahato mahiyan, nityahi jantar vihido guhayam. Anyway, I won't quote the whole thing, but it's a verse from the Upanishads. The specific relevant portion is this first. Anora niyan mahato mahiyan. That atmasya jantar nihito guhayam. That we are Anu, and the Lord is, generally we say the opposite of Anu is Vibhu. In this verse, the word, I guess you could say like Mahat or Mahan is used. That we are atomic, Anu, very small, and Krishna is, you could say, maybe very simply, you could say Krishna is very big. Krishna is extremely great, and we are very small. This word Vibhu also, Srila Prabhupada translates as omniscient. So from this perspective, you could say that our knowledge is Anu, our knowledge is very small, very atomic. We only really have knowledge of a very small, even in terms of the material energy, we only have knowledge of a very small portion of the material energy. Even like certain animals, like shrimp can see, I think shrimp can see something like 52 colors that we can't see. And that's a shrimp, And we can see, whatever, what is it? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. We can see 6 colors. Apparently, or not apparently, what's the word? You could say, evidently, there's many other colors that we can't see. And that's just colors. You can go through so many examples. There's only a very small portion of the material energy even that we have access to. But Krishna, being the proprietor of the material energy, has access to all of that and much, much more. So Krishna knows every little thing that's going on everywhere. He knows every thought that every single living entity, every thought, every instinct, every, whatever it is, that is going on in every single living entity's consciousness right now, and that which has gone on for all of time, and that will go on also, as we heard. So Krishna knows everything. Krishna knows everything there is to know about absolutely everything. There's nothing that Krishna doesn't know. So this is the definition of omniscience. The opposite of omniscience is nescience. Nescience, Srila Prabhupada, generally translates as ignorance, or we could not translates because it's also an English word, but he defines as ignorance. And this ignorance can be classified into basically 4 kinds. which are listed by Jiva Goswami in Tattva Sandarbha, that we have these 4 defects. They're also given in a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Brahma pramad vipralipsa karanapatav arshavigya vakya nahi dosha eshab. So we have these 4 defects. Brahma, Srila Prabhupada translates as mistakes. Sometimes it's also translated as illusion. But it's more aptly translated as the way Srila Prabhupada translates it as mistakes, because we mistakenly identify, well, there's basically 2 things. We might mistakenly, the main mistake we make is we may mistakenly identify ourselves with the material body, which of course we all know. I won't elaborate too much on that. We know that that's not the case. Another kind of mistake is you could say more general, is perceiving something which is not there. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example like you see a rope, a man sees a rope and he thinks it's a snake and he gets very scared. So this is Brahma. You mistakenly identify something with something else. And then you have Pramad, Brahma Pramad Vipralipsa. So you have Pramad. Pramad is, Srila Prabhupada translates as illusion. It can also be translated as inattention. Illusion in the sense that we basically make mistakes, or how to say. Basically, the idea is that if you have, let's say you're hearing this class right now, or let's say I have something on my kurta or something like that, and you're really focused on like this spot on my kurta and it's like really bugging you, it's just really bothering your mind. Although you're sitting in this class and you're hearing the sound vibrations entering into your ears, you're not focused on it. You're not focused on the sound vibrations. Instead, you're focused on what you're seeing. And so your inattention to one particular sense basically bars you from receiving any information from that sense. So if I'm seeing something, and if I'm really focused on seeing something and I'm no longer focused on hearing, I won't get any information from hearing. Although I'm hearing, if I'm not listening, then whatever information that's coming into my ears, it's basically processed as waste or just background noise. So this is pramad. And then you have vipralipsa. Vipralipsa is cheating propensity. Basically, everybody here in the material world is desirous of sense gratification. They're willing to go through, or to go to pretty extensive means to get it, which often involves cheating people. You have something I want, therefore I'm going to cheat you out of it. Because I don't care, it's all about me. That's pretty straightforward. And then you have karanapatav. Karanapatav means we have imperfect senses. Same kind of thing. Our senses can only perceive a very limited, portion of the material energy. We can only hear so many frequencies. We can only see so many, wavelengths of light, like that. We have imperfect senses. Krishna, the second half of this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Arshavigya Vakya Nahi Dosha Eshab. The second half of this verse is basically saying that what it's actually saying is that the narrations in Shastra which are given by Krishna and by the previous acharyas are above these. The general principle we can extrapolate from that is that Premi Bhaktas and the Supreme Lord don't have these 4 defects. Krishna has perfect senses. Krishna has a perfect ability to process whatever he's receiving through those senses. His faculties for perception are perfect. There's no contamination there like there is with us, obviously. Similarly also with Premi Bhaktas, with Krishna's pure devotees. Also, these, the spirit soul itself, without any material contamination, also has fairly perfect perception, at least for what it can perceive. Of course, it doesn't have perception like Krishna has perception. The living entity can't perceive. It doesn't have like the perspective of the super soul that it can see absolutely everything going on in the material world. But whatever it can perceive, it can process perfectly. It doesn't have these different defects. However, we're seeing here that Uddhava is saying, you were sufficiently able to consult with yourself, yet you called upon me for consultation. Krishna is basically, actually, Uddhava says, as if bewildered. Although Krishna is perfect, although Krishna has absolutely no material contamination whatsoever, there's not even like a question of him having material contamination. It's just not even like a possibility. Still, he comes to this world and he exhibits, or he apparently exhibits, some of these defects. Even to the extent like you have descriptions of like Krishna, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he's sweating and bleeding. Where's the blood coming from? Krishna doesn't have bones and veins and arteries and these things. Where's the blood coming from? Similarly, also sweating. Demigods don't sweat. Not even. There's also descriptions. Krishna in this Syamantaka Mani pastime. Krishna says to bring the Syamantaka Mani to Dwarka because Satyabhama is pregnant. Not even devatas, or you could say female demigoddesses. They don't even get pregnant. So Krishna's not only exhibiting defects of somebody in the material world, he's exhibiting, you could say, the defects that quite you could say on like the totem pole of like the different living entities in this material world. Humans are not that high up there. So Krishna's coming to the material world, and he's acting below the platform of a demigod, or exhibiting defects which are befitting somebody on a platform below that of even the demigods, which is very interesting. You have also in Ramayana, Ram's and Lakshman, they're traveling, they're wandering the forest with Lakshman, with Vishvamitra Muni. And they're coming to these different places, and Ram's asking, what is this place? Whose hermitage is this? I'd very much like to know, I'd like to be purified by hearing the glories of this place. Mahaprabhu also, devotees would ask Mahaprabhu a question. Or he'd say, you should go ask Ramananda Rai, go ask Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Also when Mahaprabhu met Ramananda Rai, he's saying, I'm a Mayavadi sannyasi, I'm floating in the ocean of Mayavad. How can I ever understand Radha Krishna? So the Supreme Lord, who's completely, he's never divided by the influence of time, there's no limitation to his perfect knowledge. He's acting basically as an ordinary human being. Not even he's coming to this world and he's acting like, a demigod descended on earth or this or that. But of course he does also perform, some pretty amazing pastimes like lifting Govardhan Hill and all these different things. But basically, day-to-day, you could say it's day-to-day kind of activities in the material world. From one perspective, you could say, or you could say from a materialist perspective, he just looks like any other guy. He's got blood. He's got like a body made of flesh and blood and bones, and he's got veins, and you ask him a question, sometimes he knows, sometimes he doesn't. He has people he asks, he's a king, he has his ministers, he asks his ministers, what he should do. So it's astonishing. Therefore, Uddhava is saying, Uddhava knows who Krishna is. He's not like, of course, of this persuasion. He knows exactly who Krishna is. He knows Krishna, he knows that Krishna is not divided by time. He knows that Krishna has perfect knowledge of the material world and everything that goes on in it, and of course all the spiritual worlds. So he's bewildered. Why is he coming here and asking me for advice? Why is he coming here and acting like a baby or doing this or doing that? It's bewildering. Therefore, you have this verse. Sometimes in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when a difficult topic is introduced, there's some introduction. For instance, in the 7th canto, the first chapter of the 7th canto talks about how the Lord is impartial. Why is that discussion there? It seems kind of random. That discussion is there because in the 7th canto, Krishna descending as Nrsimhadev seems to be like really seriously partial in the sense that he's extremely affectionate toward Prahlad Maharaj, and he's extremely aggressive and extremely, you could say, what's the word? Not malicious, or at least angry at, not Nrsimhadev, at Hiranyakashipu. He embraces Prahlad Maharaj. He puts his, hand on Prahlad Maharaj's head, this little boy. But then he rips Hiranyakashipu to shreds on his lap, and he wears his intestines, as a garland. So, hearing that, if you don't have the background, that actually Krishna is actually impartial, you think this guy's just like taking sides, He just killed Hiranyakashipu for the sake of saving the demigods, just for no reason, just because he likes the demigods, and he hates the demons. And the demigods are just fortunate to be born as demigods, and the demons are just unfortunate to be born as demons, and they don't have the favor of the Lord. Something like in Christianity, you have like the Israelites. The Israelites are like God's chosen people. Why are they God's chosen people? There's no reason for them to be there's no particular reason given in the Bible for them to be God's chosen people, except maybe that they were pious. But it's not like there weren't other pious people in the world at that time. So sometimes in the Bhagavatam there's some kind of introductory narrations given. One such narration occurs in the 10th canto, right before the pastime of Krishna being bound by Mother Yashoda, which also requires some context to understand properly, because you think something similar like we're seeing here. Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He's not bound by anyone. He's not bound by time. He's not bound by even the piety of all the living entities. Nobody can force him to do anything. He's not obliged to anyone. But he's in Vrindavan as a baby, and he's crying, and his mom is punishing him and putting him in timeout and tying him up. You think like, what's going on here? So there's this verse which is given, which Shukadeva Goswami speaks to Parikshit Maharaj. He says, "Evam sandarshita hyanga harina bhritya vashyata svavashenapi krishnena yasedam seishvaram vashe." He says that Krishna svavashenapi krishnena. He's fully in control of himself. Svavashe literally means he's like subordinate to himself. He's fully in control of himself, and yasyedam seishvaram vashe, and also he's fully in control of this material world. But he's manifesting this pastime of being Bhrityavashyata. He's displaying his Bhrityavashyata. Another place in the 10th canto, this word is also given, Bhaktavashyata. That he's basically displaying this pastime of being subordinate to his devotee, although he doesn't have to. And that's the main thing. That's the main bewildering aspect about it. That he doesn't have to do that. There's nothing philosophically necessary about, or like ontologically necessary, anything necessary about Krishna coming to this world and appearing as a blue baby in Vrindavan and allowing himself and getting tied up by his mother for misbehaving. There's nothing necessary about that from an ontological perspective, from the perspective that Krishna is God and we're his servants. There's nothing necessary about that. However, on top of that, Srila Prabhupada's bringing up another point in this purport. Uddhava here is saying, I'm bewildered by this aspect of your existence. I'm bewildered by this aspect of your person. That although you're the Almighty Supreme Lord, still you're acting in a way as if you're bewildered. And I'm bewildered by this. And then the first sentence of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Uddhava was actually never bewildered. So we have this weird thing going on, where you have Krishna acting as if he's bewildered. And then Uddhava also acting as if he's bewildered, that Krishna is acting as if he's bewildered. Both Krishna and his Premi Bhaktas, to their own extent, to the degree which is appropriate for their ontological position, are above the 4 defects. Premi Bhaktas also, they're above the 4 defects. Krishna and Uddhava are on the same page. They know what's going on. Similarly, Krishna and Arjuna, they're on the same page. They know what's going on. Who else? Who else do you have? Anyway, I think those are sufficient examples. I can't think of anything else right now. In terms of like a conversation between Krishna and his devotee where they're appearing as if bewildered. But you have Krishna and Arjuna, you have Uddhava and Krishna. Both of them, they know exactly, they're on the same page as to who's who and what's what. They know, they don't need anybody to teach them, or they don't need to like have a philosophical discussion to like really get to the bottom of what's going on in the material world, what's going on in the spiritual world, who's Krishna. They're fully aware of all of that. But just as Krishna sometimes, when he comes to this world, exhibits some of these defects, so also do Krishna's Premi Bhaktas, so also do Krishna's pure devotees when they come to this world. They display, apparently, some of these defects. Like Srila Prabhupada, for instance. Srila Prabhupada sometimes, Jayadvaita Maharaj brought up, Jayadvaita Maharaj wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada one time. He says, how do I understand that the Acharya, the Shakti Vaishyavatar, comes to this world and apparently he makes mistakes and I have to correct them. He was, of course, Srila Prabhupada's editor. He would edit Srila Prabhupada's books. It's bewildering. It's bewildering that Srila Prabhupada, to some people, it's bewildering that Srila Prabhupada apparently made mistakes. Like, for instance, Srila Prabhupada sometimes apparently would misquote verses. Famously, he would say this verse, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha. He would say, yo janati tattvataha. He would say, Janma karma chame divyam yo janati tattvataha. It's not how the verse appears in Bhagavad Gita. So devotees get confused, and it is confusing. It's just something that's confusing. That pure devotees come to this world and they apparently exhibit defects. And Uddhava also here, he's appearing to be bewildered. So how to understand all of this? Well, Srila Prabhupada says, in the last sentence of this purport, he says better not to understand it, actually, interestingly enough. Srila Prabhupada doesn't always take such a conservative position in this regard. Srila Prabhupada also says there's other statements. But at least in this purport, Srila Prabhupada's saying, better just to see them as they are and not attempt to explain them. There are certain things that philosophy can't access. And even if you were to try to philosophize about it, it's just not as relishable. And that's the whole point, is that Krishna's pastimes are meant to be relished. Now, I'll also balance that. That also has to be understood properly. But at least the emphasis we can say, the emphasis that the position that Srila Prabhupada is endorsing in this specific purport, is that Krishna's pastimes are meant to be relished. They're not meant to be understood. And we can also understand that. We can that is also a philosophical position. That's not just like discarding philosophy. It's not that we say that philosophy is not important. But that in and of itself is a philosophical position. Insofar as Krishna is a free agent. Krishna has free will just like we have free will. Just like if somebody walks out of the temple room right now, and, say they were to go, let's say you can go offer obeisances to Srila Prabhupada over there, or you can walk to the door and offer obeisances, or you can walk like this, or you can walk, closer to the altar. It's like, there's so many different ways to do things. And free agents, living entities who have free will, which is all of us, they have a choice. They can choose between each one of these different possibilities. It's not that one is like more. It's not that there's like a right way to do it. It's not that there's one right way to walk out of the temple room. Or maybe you ring the bell, maybe you don't ring the bell. or maybe you knock on the door instead of ringing the bell. Again, there's not one way to do things. In a similar way, there's not one way to accomplish whatever Krishna wants to accomplish in the material world. There's infinite ways he could have done it. Similarly, there's also infinite ways that Krishna could manifest his pastimes. There's infinite ways that Krishna could enjoy. It's something like asking, why is Krishna blue? There's just some things that you can't philosophize about. And that in and of itself is a tenable philosophical argument, that Krishna is a person. Just like I can't understand, for instance, I can't philosophize about like why Mitravan is wearing the particular watch that he's wearing. Of course, he has like preferences. There's certain things he likes about the watch versus a watch that anybody else would wear. There's just things he likes about it, and there's not much you can philosophize about. There's a correct watch, and by some logical deduction, you could figure out the correct watch, the most philosophically consistent watch to have. It's just not there. It's just according to the preference of the person who's wearing the watch. In a similar way, why is Krishna blue? Why does Krishna wear a peacock feather on his head? Why is Krishna a cowherd? Why is he not a shepherd? Why does Krishna wear yellow clothes? Why does Krishna have a mother and father in Vrindavan? Why is it called Vrindavan? These are things you can't access with philosophy. It's just what he likes to do. And if you understand philosophically, this is the point of theology. Theology means, theos is that means God, and logos means logic. Theology is a means to approach God. It's not a means to access God. It's a means to broach the subject. Because theology can only get you so far. You can understand, the big principles with theology. You can understand, okay, I'm a servant of God. God is all-powerful. Therefore, I'm subordinate to him. We can understand, Jiva Goswami brings up this verse in this regard. God, where is it? Anyway, it's in a commentary to one verse in the Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. I think it's the 10th canto, 11th. Oh, yeah, I think it's 10th canto, 11th chapter, 9th verse. Yeah. Anyway, whatever it is. It's a verse which is similar to the one that I quoted, this Evam Sandarshata Hyanga verse, where this word comes up, Bhakti Vashyata, where it's describing how Krishna becomes subordinate to his devotees. Jiva Goswami brings up in his commentary that, you know what verse it's in? It's in that verse, Atapi de deva padambujadvayam prasada leshanugrahita evahi. That by just a little bit of Krishna's mercy, you can just by lesha, by just a little bit of Krishna's mercy, you can understand something about his what is it? Prasada lesha. Janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno. You can understand something about his greatness, about his mahima, his glories. And then Jiva Goswami brings up, I think it's in that verse, anyway, whatever it is. He brings up this verse, Ko veti bhuman, I quoted this verse in my last class. Ko veti bhuman bhagavan paratman, yogeshvarothir bhavatas trilokyan, kvavakatam vakati vakadeti vistaryan kridasi yogamaya. And he specifically highlights this word bhuman. Bhuman means one who is great. You can almost kind of like hear it in the word. It's almost like onomatopoeic. Bhuman. This word bhuman means like someone who's very great, And Jiva Goswami brings up, I'll translate the rest of the verse. Goveti bhuman bhagavan paratman is the supreme soul. Yogeshvarotir bhavatas trilokam. He's the Yogeshvara, the master of all yoga. Bhavatas trilokam. In the three worlds, who can estimate? Kva vakatam vakati vakadeti. Who can understand how and where and why you're manifesting all these pastimes? It's just something inconceivable. And then he says, Vistaryan Kridasi Yogamayam, because it's just all the krida, it's the play of your Yogamaya. So he says, by the mercy of the Lord, Basically, but we can say by jnana, by theology, one can come to this understanding. One can come to the understanding that God is great and I'm not so great. Jiver Swarup hoy Krishner Nityadas, Krishner Tatastha Shakti Beda Bed Prakash. That much we can understand. That much you can. There is a logical progression from here to there, from A, from point A to point B. You could just deduce that. If you had nothing else, you could just deduce that. But then when you get to who God is, not just who God is, but who God chooses to be, that's the point. Who God chooses to be, there's nothing philosophy can do for you there. Why? Again, how to understand why Krishna's blue? What's the philosophical understanding? Why is Krishna blue? There's no logical progression. There's no premise 1, premise 2, and then the conclusion is that Krishna's blue. There's nothing that'll get you there. I mean, you can theorize. Okay, Srila Prabhupada, one time somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, why is Krishna blue? Srila Prabhupada said, because it's so gorgeous. He likes it. That's it, It's not a point to get hung up on. Therefore, this verse in Upadeshamrita, which this is the 6th verse in Upadeshamrita, Gangam basamna kalu budbuddha pena pankar. This is specifically talking about devotees. This is specifically talking about Krishna's devotees. It's just like water, or like during the rainy season in the Ganga. There's you have like the buildup of foam and dirt, and it's a little gross. It's smelly sometimes, But what do? Do you say, oh my God, it's so gross. The Ganga is so gross, and you don't bathe? No, you move the foam aside and you take your bath. But it's also not that, specifically in the case of devotees, it's not that you look at the foam and you say, yes, just see this amazing, beautiful foam and all the beauty, and all the dirt. Look at It's not that you don't necessarily draw attention to it. You don't look at it and say, you don't take the foam and eat it. You move it aside and you say, okay, anyway, it's the Ganga. And you move the foam aside and you take your bath. That's it. Similarly, in a similar way, you don't, go around and, I don't know, so many things you could say. So many things that people criticize Srila Prabhupada for. Wrongly, of course. Srila Prabhupada is above criticism. There's no, criticism has no, whatever. Anybody who criticizes Srila Prabhupada has no standing whatsoever. Even just logically and philosophically, Srila Prabhupada's activities are spotless. But better just see them as they are, as Srila Prabhupada is saying here. Better just see them as they are, not try to understand them. And just relish them. Relish the relationship between Uddhava and Krishna. Relish try to get some glimpse of the love that they're experiencing. And I'll throw a wrench in the works now. By doing that, by just relishing, by putting one's quote-unquote logical mind aside, not that we should actually do that, not that we shouldn't try to philosophically understand Krishna consciousness, but by understanding to whatever extent we can, acknowledging our limitations, and just relishing the pastimes of Krishna. By that, we can understand actually that there is a purpose to all of these different things. It's not that all of these things are necessarily beyond understanding, like we're seeing here. Uddhava understands. It's not that Uddhava doesn't understand, and Uddhava is not, not necessarily that we could ever think of coming to the platform of Uddhava in the sense of being like on his level in terms of his relationship with Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada describes you can actually understand in different places. Srila Prabhupada describes. I mean, if we can't understand, if it's completely beyond our comprehension, not something that we could, should even talk about, then why even speak the verse? Janma karma chamedavyam evam yoveti tattvataha. Why say tattvataha? Why would Krishna say understand it in truth if it's impossible? So one perspective is if it's not clear to you, then don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be clear to you right away. But by simply relishing the pastimes of Krishna, by hearing over and over again, like there's this verse, Oh my God, it's such a famous verse. I can't believe I'm forgetting it. Vidunoti surhit satam. No. No. It's so I always forget like the most essential verses. I always forget them. Where you're hearing and Krishna's cleaning the heart from within. Yeah. Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridyantyastho Badrani, Vidunoti Surhitsatam. Okay, at least I'm not the only one who forgot. Okay, so nobody can make fun of me for that. By hearing over and over and over again, by just relishing. There's another verse. Pibantiye Bhagavata Atmanasatam Katamratam Shravana Puteshu Sambratam. Pibantiye Bhagavata Atman. Those who drink piba, those who drink Pibantiye Bhagavata Atmanasatam Katamratam Shravana Puteshu Sambratam. Those who drink in the nectar of Bhagavad Katha, Krishna Katha. And this is a nice kind of analogy that's given here, metaphor. Katamatam Shravana Puteshu. Shravana Puteshu means it means your hearing holes. Sambratam, filling your ears with the nectar. Shravana Punanti te Vishaya Vadushitashayam Vrajanti touch Charana Sororuhantakam, sorry. By continuously filling our ears and drinking in the nectar of Krishna Katha, one gradually, their polluted aim of life, specifically Srila Prabhupada says in this verse, in the translation, one's polluted aim of life is gradually diminished or changed, actually, transformed, and he makes progress on the path to Krishna's lotus feet. So, understanding that in relation with this verse from Tam Sukata Krishna, and understanding it also in relation to this verse, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, we can understand, you can develop, you could say, a more comprehensive philosophical understanding of this principle, that there are certain things in Krishna's Lila, ultimately we won't understand. For instance, we won't understand, why gopis, why gopas, why cows, all these different things. There's some things we can't philosophically access, and that's something that we should accept. Similarly, also with Krishna's activities, why Krishna acts in certain ways, why Krishna does this, why Krishna does that. From our polluted perspective, so there's there's different degrees. Some things we'll never understand. Some things we just literally have zero access to. There's just no way. It's just not possible. Some things we can have access to, but we don't because we're contaminated. Something like this, what is understanding Krishna's intention? What is Krishna's intention with acting bewildered? And Uddhava's intention with acting bewildered. Those are things that we could understand, but we ourselves can't understand it. We need the understanding of a pure devotee to explain it to us. Those are two different things. So Srila Prabhupada addresses both of those things in this purport. For the former category, he says it's better to see Krishna's activities as they are and not attempt to explain them, because there are certain things we can't explain. On the other hand, Srila Prabhupada also says the whole discussion between Krishna and Uddhava is meant for the benefit of Maitreya, which is my final point, that ultimately, Srila Prabhupada, in his purport to this verse 4.9, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, he says that if one understands Krishna's activities, one becomes liberated. But then he also says that the purpose of Krishna's activities in this material world is this liberation. So they go hand in hand. So here, Uddhava, as a liberated soul, is described as understanding Krishna's intention. At the same time, there is this other intention that can be understood. And he's basically speaking with Krishna. He has this intention and Krishna also, to deliver Maitreya, who is a jnani, who has performed, basically he's a jnana mishra bhakta. He's performed devotional service, but he's a jnani, he's ultimately, you could say, he's attached to jnana, basically. Sridhar Swami, in one of his commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically also in this verse, Atapite deva pujamajotayam prasada leshanu grihitevahi, that one can understand Krishna by only by his mercy. Sridhar Swami says that this mercy comes if one is trying to understand. That person who's trying to understand can receive that mercy if he's a jnani, if he's just trying to understand. He can only receive that mercy if there's some bhakti mixed in there. So Maitreya, we can see that he's there. He's right there. He's perfectly qualified to receive the mercy of the Lord, to receive some understanding about the Lord. And therefore, Krishna and Uddhava are kind of, you could say, working together to deliver him. They're having this conversation in front of him to deliver him. In the same way that Krishna and Arjuna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, in the same way that, so many things Krishna does in this material world is ultimately for our liberation. So I'll just summarize because there was a lot there, and just so you can have some takeaways. Krishna's above time. Krishna can see all of time because he's above it. Just like we can see, just like somebody can see a line on a piece of paper, but a person at a specific point on that line can't see the entire line. Krishna can see the whole thing. Also, Krishna's omniscient. He knows everything that's going on. Sometimes, and we are not omniscient, we are nescient. We have defects that are a result of our material contamination. Krishna doesn't have these defects, neither do his pure devotees, but they display defects. Why that is so, sometimes we can understand, sometimes we can't. And the main thing is that we can understand by the mercy of another pure devotee, and specifically, one such pure devotee is explaining to us that this pastime here is for, I shouldn't say not just one such pure devotee, but Srila Prabhupada, of course, is exalted even amongst pure devotees. But Srila Prabhupada is here explaining to us that this specific pastime is meant for the benefit of Maitreya, for the liberation of Maitreya, just like many other of Krishna's pastimes are for our liberation. So that we can have something to talk about, something to hear about, something to think about, something to remember, and then by that become liberated. So I'm sorry if that presentation wasn't exactly clear. Please forgive me, but I hope that there was something there. But if there's any comments or questions.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So you were mentioning in the beginning of your class when you were talking about how Krishna can see time as like the whole timeline. I guess it isn't just specific parts, but it's the whole timeline. And in that sense, certain events, or maybe even all events, are all predetermined in one sense.
Yes and no. Okay. So there's these philosophical positions. There's free will. Even within free will, there's different types of free will. There's like libertarian free will. There's also like compatibilism, and then there's determinism. Determinism is only to say that that we could say present or future events are caused, or not caused, but basically determined. I didn't want to use that because then now it's a circular definition. But basically determined by past events. So basically at like t equals 0, the first moment of time, there was like basically a process set in motion, and because of that, then this, then this, then this, then this, and this, and it's all just basically predetermined. It's like dominoes falling, It's not like a domino can choose to, fall this way or that way. It's like strictly cause and effect. Free will is only to say, it's not to say that like this position on time is not to say that things, so in one sense it is determined, like you're saying, in the sense that every decision that we have made and will ever make already exists. But that's not to say that it's determined in the sense that it could not have been different. Just that if you look back on the past, we can't change those decisions. We've made those decisions already. So it's not that those decisions were determined or that they were, predestined. It's only to say that we've already made the decision. We had the chance to choose between the options, and we've already chosen. So anyway, sorry, it's a semantic thing because you said the word determined. That word is loaded, at least in terms of this particular discussion. But sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, so I was going to ask specifically in the case of like future events, how you were kind of explaining that those are already kind of going to happen, how they are.
So you're asking how is that compatible?
Well, I mean, I was kind of going to get to like a specific instance, like for example, when one either starts to take up to Krishna consciousness or even decides to go away from Krishna consciousness. Is this something that's already determined by Krishna that, okay, this person is going to go away from Krishna consciousness? And if so, then why does he decide that for the specific person?
Yeah. So again, it's not to say that the future is determined. It's a tricky thing because you have to kind of use like tenseless words. Therefore, this whole idea, it's not to say that it's determined, that it's like because from our perspective, we are making free choices. We experience making free choices, and factually, we are making free choices. We do have free will. So it's not that the future is already set in stone. It's only that it exists. And there is a subtle distinction there. There is a subtle distinction there that requires, again, that's why I said like you could give several classes on this, just like one subject. This theory of time is not to say that it only says that the future exists, that future events exist, in the sense that like just like you have a line. Let's say I have this line, and I'm right here on the line. It doesn't mean that this part of the line doesn't exist if I'm moving this way. It doesn't mean that this part of the line doesn't exist. But I'm here. So it's not that future events are predetermined or are determined already. Predetermined, I guess. This theory of time says nothing about the causality between different points on that line. It's only to say that the rest of the line exists. And that basically the free choices that we will make already exists, or already exist. So is it already predetermined when we will take to Krishna consciousness? No, but Krishna knows when we will. Krishna knows when we will make that decision, because he knows the future. There are other perspectives on this. Like some devotees say, I mean, I've heard devotees even say that, yeah, when we're talking about Krishna knowing the future, he actually doesn't. That Krishna actually only knows all of the different possibilities and their probabilities, or he knows in the sense that we know that in the summertime it's going to be hot. I don't think that's not a position I would endorse because because one thing I think that this position that all of time exists as a whole, and that the free decisions that we make and will make already exist. Not that we didn't make them. It's not that we didn't choose, and it's not that it's like predetermined, but that it already exists. I think that's a tenable philosophical position. It covers the fact that we have free will, and it covers the fact that Krishna can see the future. And I also just think it makes sense. And why does it make sense? I think it makes sense because it's inconceivable. It covers those two. It checks those two boxes, you could say, and it seems to follow the same logic. Like just like if I have this, this is like a two-dimensional or yeah, you have a two-dimensional being. I can look straight on at that two-dimensional being in a way that he can't. He can only look left or right, but I can look at him straight on. In a similar way, I think Krishna being above time, I think it makes good philosophical sense that Krishna could see time like that. Now, exactly what his experience is of that, exactly what he's perceiving, that's, we have no access to that. But at least logically, I think the logic checks out. And I think, again, it's a tenable philosophical position that checks those boxes. It's not, I don't think devotees have a solid, I don't think we have like a solid position on like exactly what this is. This is a position I endorse. Also because there's statements of Srila Prabhupada that seem to indicate that. There's things like Srila Prabhupada says, like for Krishna, there's no past, present, or future. If we're saying that Krishna doesn't know or if we're saying that Krishna knows the future, but only in the sense that he doesn't know exactly what's going to happen, but he knows what might happen, then it's kind of like saying the future doesn't exist. It's kind of like saying that Krishna, only exists in the present moment, and he can't exist in the future. But I don't think I don't think you could square that with that verse that Krishna can see every single division of time. So I think at least I haven't heard anything from our spiritual master on this, and I haven't heard many devotees specifically endorse this position, but it seems to be the most philosophically straightforward one, if you want to call it straightforward. It's of course like something that's like not really, conceivable by us, but it seems to me to be the most comprehensive one. Some devotees also say that Krishna literally just can't see the future, and he has like some idea of the future, but that's, of course, I don't think that's an option in terms of, but it's a big discussion. That's why I tried to like cover something of it in this class, but it's not something you can cover in one class, or even two classes, because it requires also, I think, a discussion of the different points of view of time. And like a thorough discussion of them, and you could look for verses, and you could look for things from, statements from Srila Prabhupada, and there's so much out there that you can't fit it in a class, in just one class. So, anything more? You have more?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's cool. I guess in the same vein, I kind of had a question about where we hear about like Kripa cities, or people that just kind of just get like the mercy, and I think in some places Prabhupada almost says like if by chance one happens to get like the mercy of like a pure devotee, is this something that's set up and arranged by Krishna for this person to get the mercy at some point in their life? And because it seems to be random, but it also might seem that there's some reason for it. I was just kind of wondering if that's like something.
Yeah, I don't think we would say that it's like, I think when Srila Prabhupada uses the phrase by chance, it doesn't usually mean literally by chance, like literally just randomly by some probability Krishna just like chose somebody to like give the mercy to. Krishna doesn't impose on people's free will like that. At least it doesn't seem to me, from my limited perspective, that's something consistent with the different statements in Shastra about Krishna and free will. Rather, it seems by chance means, or seems to indicate the difficulty of receiving that kind of siddhi, like the difficulty of receiving. Difficulty in the sense that if one is fortunate enough, that's the way to put it. If one is fortunate enough to receive the mercy of Krishna, in the sense that he's fortunate enough to have the understanding, to desire the mercy of a pure devotee, and not just that, but the ability to actually act in such a way to attract the mercy. And when we see Kripa Siddha, one thing is Kripa Siddha is a very rare thing. It seems to me like there's, and I've heard devotees also kind of describe the Kripa Siddha phenomenon as something like it's something like, I don't know, like one devotee I was speaking to one devotee, and he's a senior devotee, he was telling me that basically he has this perception. He was advising me, actually, he gave me the advice. He said that in our movement nowadays, there's some people who think that, or who emphasize statements of Srila Prabhupada, such as, Srila Prabhupada has like a key to the back door, and that if we just, just hold on to the, onto Srila, it's also kind of like questionable whether actually Srila Prabhupada said some of these things, but especially this dhoti thing. Devotees quote Srila Prabhupada as saying, just hold on to my dhoti and I'll take you back to Godhead. It's questionable whether he said that. So this is like, it seems like some devotees have like an imbalance toward like kripa siddha, like we just, you just surrender to Srila Prabhupada and basically it's like guaranteed to go back to Godhead, and then whenever a devotee leaves their body, we say, oh, Prabhuji went back to Godhead, or Mataji went back to Godhead. But maybe, it's not out of the question, but it seems to some devotees that there's like an imbalance in this regard, that we just like assume that everybody goes back to Godhead, and we assume that we're going back to Godhead because like we're in, I shouldn't say we're in ISKCON. We're not allowed to say that here, but just because we're like following Srila Prabhupada. So Kripa Siddha is a rare thing. It doesn't seem to me like it's just like Krishna just like imposes, like just Krishna just like decides to throw mercy down on somebody. Rather, it seems to me like somebody has. It's not a topic I have a great grasp on, but it seems to me, at least at face value, I could say maybe that somebody has an ardent desire, seriously ardent desire for perfection, and maybe Krishna has some plan for them, and therefore he gives them some kind of mercy whereby they can become perfect very quickly to execute some purpose. But again, it's like I can't think of an actual like recorded instance in Shastra of somebody of like kripa siddha. I mean, of course, there's kripa involved in every person's becoming a siddha. But yeah, I can't. If anybody else can think of, Tapas has something.
The story of Arjuna trees, and he like pulled them down, and like Narada Muni cursed him, and then.
Yeah, I guess you could say that's kripa siddha. But I don't think they went back to Godhead. I think they went back. Yeah, they went back to their positions. Yeah.
I was just reading a couple weeks ago, and in the purport, Prabhupada said that Bali Maharaj was a Kripa Siddha. Because, he didn't, at least in the situation that he was in, kind of like what you were describing, that it wasn't like he was
It wasn't just like
actively
random,
working on the path to go back to Godhead, but Krishna could tell that desire was there. So then he came and he gave Bali Maharaj this opportunity where in like a short window of time he could surrender everything.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like...
Yeah, also one thing is that I guess that seems to be like, some good indication about that, Dhruva Maharaj. Oh, Dhruva Maharaj's mother? Well, Dhruva Maharaj is, I guess you could kind of say that. But she was kind of, I think that, that could be a case, perhaps. It's not exactly like elaborated upon, but I could see that. Because she was connected with Dhruva Maharaj. Is it time? Oh, Lord, I'm sorry. It's like really late. Okay. Okay, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I'm sorry for going so late. I lost track of time. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha